Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Representative Gary Hopper. This is Josh Solomon. And with us tonight, is the Honorable Lynn Blankenbecker.
Thanks for having me.
And she's awesome. Mainly is why we had you on. So today at the State House, there was a bunch of gun bills that all passed because the Democrats hold all the cards. So we just sat back and watched the horrors happen, and we're confident that the governor's going to veto them, and we have the votes to stop to prevent it from going into law. But man, we got to stop voting in Democrats. It's really, really bad. So then, I always fight against the assisted suicide stuff, right? But today I was having second thoughts. Because the guys from Science and Tech got up to the microphone and decided to spend like 20 minutes each or a half an hour each talking about net metering.
What's that got to do with this?
I know where you're going with this.
And I wasn't allowed to have my gun, so I couldn't shoot myself to make it stop. I went for the window and somebody grabbed me because a lot of people trying to end their lives instead of listening to an hour-long debate on net metering. It was so bad. And then,
well, I'm glad you did it.
And then I'm not going to name them anyway, even if I knew, but just to add insult to injury, after we're bored, it's getting on after 5 o'clock. One of the and the legislature, somebody can get up and ask for personal privilege, which means they get up and say something that's very meaningful to them. So a Democrat got up to apologize for what he never said. He just said that I think he said that he's humble or something, and then he went on to this diatribe, and then he started reading from Dr. Seuss. So keep in mind, you got hundreds and hundreds of people sitting there waiting for him to finish, so the speaker can say, you can go home, press your green button for mileage, and this guy's going on about the ZACs, the northbound and southbound ZACs.
Okay.
And it was very tedious. So, but anyway, I did not kill myself today, and I thought that
I'm
was
very grateful.
A very, very good accomplishment for today. But
Very good, very good. Well, for the amount of money that you make, I would hope that it would not drive you to ending your life or, your public service. And thank you for what you do for us.
Well, actually, if I was actually making money, it might be, less.
Right.
A little bit less tedious.
Right.
You might enjoy being there a little bit more.
If I knew I could actually had enough money to do something with it.
Well, and I don't.
Massachusetts legislature pays.
Yeah, they do.
You can move down there.
Yeah, I'm sure I'd get elected.
Well, at least this representative quoted a local. Because Dr. Seuss, he went to Dartmouth.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He was born in Massachusetts, right?
I'm not sure
Or
where he was
Connecticut.
born, but I do know he has Dartmouth roots. So.
Yeah,
His widow still
Or,
lives here.
or Dartmouth ties,
Really?
I should say.
I read something. Maybe she just passed, but I thought part of his
now
family.
we're
Still,
gonna-
Mrs.
still-
Seuss?
still
Yes,
live
I know, and
here
that's not
in New
his real
Hampshire.
last name, but
Mrs. Seuss.
yeah, but Dr. Seuss's wife I did hear recently passed.
That is me then.
That is you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's
I'm
not
guilty.
me. That's okay.
So anyway, Lynn is running for Congress. We're just talking about your territory goes all the way from Massachusetts all the way to Montrebec,
Yes.
all the way to
Way
the
up
Canadian border on Route 3.
And all the way down the western side of the state. Yep.
That's a huge.
It's very
district.
large geographically, but it's been a lot of fun. It is fun. First of all, I really enjoy going to North Country. In fact, tomorrow I'll be there all day. I'm going to go see some friends and meet some new voters and meet some new supporters. So that's really always exciting. I like going up there. And, not too long ago, I did a Trump wave up there. And there were a handful of us, and we were standing on the street holding our signs for President Trump. And would you believe, I would say very, very few, and it's very anecdotal, but I would say 8 out of 10 cars gave us a thumbs up or honked their horn and was waving. There were very, very few. Even the Vermont folks were giving us a thumbs up.
the closet conservatives are coming out over the last couple of years since that Mueller report died.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
very, very emboldened.
Well, I think, well, the Mueller report was a big deal because the CNN, MSNBC, and National Propaganda Radio have been convincing people for 2 years that Donald J. Trump had been colluding with the Russians.
Yeah, and a lot of GOP folks, even down in Washington, were kind of buying into it, and we had to go through this cycle where, okay, wait a minute, right? And so even some former never Trumpers have said, okay, we got it,
Right.
we're done with this, and the support is come out in droves since then.
Well,
It's amazing.
I don't know if you know that I got to serve on the Women for Trump advisory board. So back in June, the Trump administration called me. I was
worried because when you announced that, I said, oh, I hope that doesn't mean she's not running for Congress.
No, but I was very taken aback because I didn't even know how they knew me. And so I was really grateful that they called me up. And I had the real privilege of going across the United States, but mostly on the East Coast, and speaking on behalf of Women for Trump. And I did rallies in Rhode Island, and I did some time in Virginia. Sounds like I went to jail.
I know, it does you say that.
Yeah, I went down to Virginia and did I did a radio show down there. I was on TV down there, and it was tremendous. And we are armed with the facts, and it was so easy to go out and talk about President Trump and the accomplishments he's made for women, especially. I mean, since I was on Women for Trump, that was a lot of the facts that I was sharing. But also, they had me do the salute to service because I was a veteran as well, and so they had me do that. And just talking about this president's accomplishments, what he's done for us, I'll tell you, because we were focused on Women for Trump, I signed up so many women, thousands of women. So if anybody believes out there that there are not women supporting President Trump, they're sadly mistaken. The fact of the matter is I personally signed up thousands of women.
The mainstream media is attempting to say women aren't supporting Trump. It's a theme that they've been on for a long time. It's
same along goes along.
Women,
with
minorities are
racist.
supposed to vote Democrat, and if you don't, then you're betraying your race, you're betraying your gender, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I can tell you it's different. I mean,
Well, I know the one statistic that I heard it at first, and then it kind of made sense once I figured it out. Because it's the lowest unemployment for women for 76 years. And then I figured out, that's the end of World War II. Because the women were all working in the factories.
Everybody
was
was,
working.
Yeah.
It was all hands on deck in World War II.
Yeah.
My grandmother was a Rosie the Riveter.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That is very cool. No, it's. I mean, we have opportunity that we've never had before. And one of the things that's really interesting that the president has started an initiative across the globe empowering women, and it's women entrepreneurship. And why is that so important for us is, when other cultures are successful, or you have success within, another country, people are empowered, and so they don't do things like join a gang, join the Taliban, become terrorists, and then that becomes better for us. Even within our own nation, when you're back at work, you're not in a gang, right? You're working, you don't have to get involved in that kind of stuff. And so
Trying to come up with a joke there, but
well, and so it's been so important because the initial goal is just to empower women, but really the collateral, which is a tremendous benefit, is that we should see a decrease in the amount of violence and terrorism across the globe.
Yeah, I thought one of the I know this isn't part of that, but I know one of the statistics that really impressed me is that teenage black kids a lot more of them have work now. Which is really cool because, like you say, what is it our grandparents always said, idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Right.
So young kids actually having jobs and making money so they're not hanging around getting in trouble is a really cool thing.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said for that accomplishment and that self-worth, right? And the fact that we have how many now? 10 million people off of food stamps. It's not because he got rid of the food stamp program. It's because people are back to work and they're able to buy their own groceries. And you can only imagine that sense of pride when you come home as a father or a mother or whomever, and you bring those groceries that you bought for your family, that you earned for your family, rather than dependent on the federal government to provide that for your family. And so I think it's, it's just goodness all around.
Yeah, I'm waiting for because the thing is we have a right to bear arms.
Mm-hmm.
But when is the government going to buy me more guns?
Okay, there is nowhere in there.
Well, it says, you said people say they have their right to what? What does it say about? Oh,
Well,
free college.
Free
That's
college,
not
free
even in.
health
That's
care.
not in the
Constitution,
Constitution.
yeah.
Health
Right?
care isn't a constitutional right.
Healthcare is not in the Constitution,
Yeah.
but guns are.
But that doesn't
So
mean the
if
government has to buy
we're
it.
going to prioritize the one that's most constitutional,
If the government's going to buy me anything, if I'm going to get anything free,
free,
it's going
it
to be
should
the
be a
things that
gun.
are on that list in the first 10
guns,
amendments.
right?
Okay.
Guns.
So,
Pre-
so you're running against
Ann Custer.
Custer?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got quite a resume. I see. You're a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You're 33 years in
34.
the military. 34 years in the military.
Entering my 34th year.
And a doctorate in law.
Yes.
You think you're smarter than me?
No. I am
I
just.
know she's smarter than me.
No. I am just one of those people that has just been very fortunate. The great thing about being an American is we have a ton of opportunity. And when opportunity presents, either I was silly enough to take the opportunity or whatever. But no, I had these great opportunities and I was able to turn them into something that's for the greater good. So it's been really great. Yeah.
So, coming from a long line of Navy retirees, you're in the Navy.
I am.
Yep. But there's a mark on your military record that
Uh-oh.
we got to kind of talk about before we move forward. Apparently, you spent some time in the Chair Force.
I did. I got my commission with the Air Force, and I did 5.5 years on it.
Wait. Why is that? What's Chair Force?
Ooh, because they spend their time in
Chairs.
hotels and
Okay, I
right,
want to
as
dispel a
opposed
myth.
to in the ditches, in the sand.
Okay,
or
wait.
on the ship in the sea, right?
Okay, I have to dispel a myth for you here because I'm all about facts. I did deploy for Desert Shield, Desert Storm with the Air Force. I had to pitch my own tent in the sand. I was given a little Dixie cup about this big when we were building our hospital that I had to build a radiation proof room because we didn't have lead walls. So we built, they had two, gosh, I'm not a construction person, but they had these plywood walls that were 18 inches apart. And we sat there with our little Dixie cups and filled it with sand so that we could make the barrier
Yep.
so that we could have an x-ray room.
Yep.
I lived in a tent. I ate MREs. I did not have a swimming pool. I did not have all those. I did not have a golf course. All those
just
things that
teasing.
people think that we had.
How are those MREs? Are they any good, or is they as bad as I assume they are?
You know what? I'm not going to be a complainer about being given food
No, you
in a
can
war
tell us
zone.
the truth. This is a truth zone.
No, there are a lot of calories.
Not when I speak, but I'm saying when the guests, right? The
Right.
guests have to tell it.
So they have some really good things. They have this maple walnut bar in them. Those are really good. And then they have, so they're really good. They're complete meals and they're designed for you to have that meal all day long. So when you open the package, you get like an entree, spaghetti and meatballs, and they've gotten really a lot better. You get a little tiny bottle of Tabasco sauce. You get something to make Kool-Aid with to put in your canteen if the water's not good. Gum, coffee, toilet paper.
That's a good
That's
one.
like gold when you're over there. Let's see what else. And then it just has like crackers and cheese, like a cheese whiz stuff. So the food isn't terrible. I
But
really.
do you have like post-traumatic stress from opening up the MREs?
I'm gonna be honest. I just didn't eat them.
What?
I didn't really eat them.
Oh, the truth is out.
No, because you know
I
what?
got
There's so many.
catered from the local club. Yeah.
No. No, we got catered from the Grateful Americans who sent us wonderful care packages with lots of really good stuff in them, like cookies and granola bars and stuff like that. And so we had plenty to eat over there. The Girl Scout cookies, people sent us cases of Girl Scout cookies.
I remember sending stuff over there.
Yeah.
I was just finishing up high school at the time, and I took every opportunity my father was still in the Navy at the time, and I was one of those people that was just sending stuff.
Well,
as
thank
much
you.
as
I
could.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. No, you have no idea. You know, it was funny after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, it was almost like President Bush at the time, sent out a memo to the entire United States that said, you have to fly an American flag and you have to tie a yellow ribbon on everything. And then you have to write to a service member and tell them that those things. Because literally, every letter, I would go by the post office. Desert Shield, Desert Storm was a little bit different. We didn't have internet like we have now, but I would go by the post office every day and I'd pick up a handful of letters to read and then respond to. And I would always pick up something strange, where maybe if it was written in crayon by a child, or if it had a funny stamp, or if it was from a place that sounded really interesting. But literally every letter said there are American flags flying everywhere and there are yellow ribbons tied on everything. And it was wonderful. And I'd write back to the folks.
Like I said, I remember it distinctly. One of the things that was going on back home while everybody was over there was that we were bound and determined that this was not going to be like coming home from Vietnam.
And it wasn't. I mean,
And
I didn't
so
live in Vietnam, but
I lived in Maine at the time, and every flight coming home went through Bangor. And I just remember there was always a group like, hey, let's go up to the airport today. Let's go up to the. It was every day. You could count on somebody coming in, and you would just randomly decide, hey, you know what? I got a couple hours. Let's go do it, right? And meet everybody coming home. It was
it was
fun.
really wonderful. I mean, I have to say that the folks out there, God bless our Vietnam veterans, I think it was a result of them that they said never again. This
Right,
will never happen again.
exactly.
And so I was treated really well. Every war I've come home from. My family threw a victory party after Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I don't know how they got that many people in a room at a moment's notice, because we don't give troop movement information. So they had no idea when I was coming home exactly. Some bakery was able to make a cake really quick, and it was really fun. So, I think it's a lot different for us, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful America's healed enough.
What about the people coming from Afghanistan? That's lasted so long.
Now, when I came home from Afghanistan, it was different because I flew home and I landed in Manchester at 9 o'clock at night. My family wasn't there. And I got in a cab and took a cab to my home in Concord. And the guy who took me home in the cab, he just threw my duffel bags on my driveway. My driveway hadn't been plowed. It was January. And I had an electronic doorknob, but the battery died because it had been so cold. So I had to walk over to my neighbor's house and borrow a key to get in. And my house was cold because it hadn't been heated. My family wasn't there. My daughter was at school in Texas. And I ended up walking. My car battery was dead because it had been in the garage for so long and not on a trickle charge. So I walked to the VFW in my uniform, and I got there, and the guys were like, "Oh, she's back. You want a beer?" It was. And then somebody gave me a ride home in my house by that time and heated up and stuff, and they helped me get my car started. And it was different, but it wasn't awful.
No,
I mean,
no,
it wasn't like I
it
got
wasn't like
spit on
It
or
wasn't,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It wasn't
no.
disrespectful.
No, not by any
Right.
stretch of the imagination. No,
Yeah.
it was just different. And because I do think you're right, Gary. I think the nation's getting a little tired of this protracted and prolonged war.
I think that's why. See, this is my own theory. You probably know a lot more about this than I do, but my theory is that every president, maybe except with exception of Bush, but definitely Obama, went in there with the intent to harness or rein in all these deployments. Like, we shouldn't be fighting everywhere all the time. And it seemed like, I'm willing to bet that he meant it when he went in. But the people in the
Deep
military,
state.
the
We
deep
call it the
state,
deep state now.
they don't make any money if we're not at war. And so the reality of this situation caused him to be as much of a war hawk as almost anybody else.
Well,
And Trump seems to be bucking the system.
So we were there doing a lot of nation rebuilding.
Right.
That was a very different, the mission was different. I'll just tell you my experience, and this is just one person's experience in the war, between serving under President Obama and serving under President Trump. I'll
Okay.
just talk about that. So, You know, when I served under President Obama, I was in Afghanistan during that time. We were very culturally sensitive. We had to be very culturally aware. I was given a weapon. I was given 15 rounds of ammunition, and I was told that I couldn't load my weapon.
Barney Fife.
I was also told that if I lost one of my rounds, I would be court-martialed. I know, right? And when I got over there, we were very culturally sensitive. It was about nation rebuilding, and so we were training the Afghan National Army. We were training the Afghan National Police. We were trying to help them become more self-sufficient. We were working on building up their, their infrastructure. And so there were a lot of people there to nation rebuild. You know, it was a lot of NATO forces there. We took care of, I was a nurse, and so we took care of patients. Our patients were obviously the American and coalition soldiers, contractors, the military working dogs, and the local nationals. So especially if we injured somebody, you know, there was a bombing or we accidentally injured somebody who was a local, they would come get treated at our hospital. And all of our patients would come to us what we call trauma naked, where you get them, you have to be able to make sure they don't have bombs or grenades or booby traps on them, right? And so we have to make sure. But the Afghan women, we did not do that for. The Afghan women came fully dressed. And the reason was because their culture didn't want us to see them unclothed. And so being a very culturally sensitive war at the time, you know, I got myself in a situation where we had a patient, she was an Afghan woman, and she came in fully dressed. And as I was cutting off her clothes and talking to the interpreter to tell him, you know, tell her I'm cutting off her clothes, I have to assess her. It was an all-female team. I reached around, she had a bomb on her. And, you know, I had to hold on to that bomb and get everybody out of there until we knew it was not a pressure bomb or it was safe to let go. And we sedated her, you know, and kept her calm and whatever. But that's the difference.
Wait, why was did she have a bomb? Was she trying to kill you?
Well, I don't know the whole full story, but her husband was in the first trauma bay and she was in the second trauma bay. They were doing CPR on her husband, and we were told they were victims of an IED blast. I later learned, of course, when we cleared the trauma bay, everybody had to leave and her husband passed. We couldn't continue to work on him. She had a wiring harness. I don't know if they were loading all of the explosives into her harness, but I learned that her husband's watch was hollow and was probably a detonator. You know, it didn't have watch gears in it. So it was probably a detonator. So I don't know if he was going to blow up his wife. I don't really know. We don't know the whole story. I don't know. But I do know this, that she came back 3 weeks later. And so I think they were trying to see if they could infiltrate our hospital with another, you know, I mean, and that was, so maybe it was an intelligence mission. Maybe he was going to blow her up. I don't know. We never got the details on that. All I know was that day I was hanging on and everybody got out of there and we were all safe. And it didn't explode, obviously, because I'm here to talk about it.
Wow.
Now, fast forward. President Trump becomes our president. So in 2017, President Trump was our president. It was early. It was in January, right after his inauguration, maybe February. And President Trump, I was stationed at the Pentagon at the Defense Health Headquarters at the time. And President Trump came to speak to us at Fort Myer. We were all crammed into this gym. And President Trump walked out and he said, "You have one mission, and it's to win. And I'm going to man you, train you, and equip you with the ability to do that. And I'm going to give your generals and your admirals and your leadership the authority to fight this war." And it was very different.
As opposed to focusing on being culturally sensitive and having these types of things show up because you're not allowed to search people.
Right. So our president, before President Obama, bowed to the leaders of foreign nations. He apologized for being an American, and it was a very different. Our mission was
before Trump.
Right, before Trump, before
Right.
President Obama.
When she says bow, she means literally bow.
Right.
Like,
But President Trump was very different. And let's look at President Trump's track record. Baghdadi. You know, he executed a flawless mission, not one drop of American blood shed for that mission. He went back in a month later and got the general, right? Again, another flawless mission. He's had a third flawless mission since. He's organized, he's a planner, he knows what he's doing, and he goes in and makes it happen.
and things aren't expanding. If anything, he's being ridiculed for pulling people out of, say, Syria and whatnot. He's trying to end these things.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that and I can't speak for the president. I'm not, I don't sit on those classified briefings with the president, but I will tell you that it's a very different military now. We have a different focus. The hospitals have turned more operational. We are really focusing more
What does that
on.
mean?
More of our training is to support outside of the brick and mortar buildings that are here in the United States or on military bases, but that has been turned over to the Defense Health Agency, which is now an agency that runs all of that beneficiary care. Our job is to follow the soldiers into battle and
Right.
and take care of them in an operational, whether it's on sea or land or in the air.
Right.
So it's starting to change.
You're not in the Marines.
Well, but the Marines are attached to the Navy, and the Marines don't have a medical unit, so we have to be there for them.
So I'm kind of impressed. So you're commanding officer of the nurses.
It was an
Corps in-
entire medical command, so I had a 909 member medical command out in San Diego. I was in charge of the medical unit that supported all of the reserve medical unit that supported the entire Pacific theater. So we had Guam, Hawaii, and I had units all over California, and yeah.
You're not part of that anymore?
No, I turned over command on December 6th.
Oh, so fairly recently.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Is that to run for?
No, my tour was over. The military is very wise. See, we don't let people stay in positions of power very long. We move them through, right? You either move to the next level or you go home. And Congress should do that.
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
kidding.
We
Yeah.
need term limits in Congress just like they have term limits for commanding officers.
Right.
For us, you meet a board, they select you for commanding officer, you have your commanding officer tour. And then it's time for you to turn over command and give somebody that you've groomed an opportunity to have that leadership position, and then you move on to a different leadership position.
So you were in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that was more stressful or less stressful than being in the New Hampshire legislature?
Depends on if you got a Republican or a Democrat majority.
Because you served how many? 2 terms
Two
with
times.
me. 2 terms with me.
Yeah. Well, 1.5. I was picked up in a special in 2009. So I did 2009 to 2010. I won my regular election in 2010 and served till 2012.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then I got sent to the Pentagon, so that was the end of that. Yeah. But no, it's been good. I think that we're well trained, we're well equipped. I think when we have leadership that really supports us and backs us and has our six. I will tell you, I have served in war and in the military every president since Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Right. So I deployed
You
into.
don't look old enough, by the way, to have done that.
Thank
Did
you.
you start when you were 5?
No.
No.
So I served under Ronald Reagan, both the Bushes, the Clintons. I was in the military during that, all of that, right? And when President Trump, this last rally, I was very close to him, like geographically very close to him. And when he walked out to the podium, and he stood there, I turned to the man next to me. I literally had tears in my eyes, and I went, "That's my commander-in-chief." I have never had that feeling before about a president. For the first time, and I wouldn't say that other presidents didn't have our back, but I never felt this overwhelming sense that President Trump cares so much about our military folks that he is going to, the things he's done
That's
to
one thing
support
that
us.
really, really sticks in the side of liberals is that his affection is genuine.
Well, look at what happened. Prime Minister Modi, when the Prime Minister of India, when he was introducing President Trump at the Houston rally months ago, he stood up, I think it was 25 minutes, and he talked about President Trump and how President Trump shared with him about his family and his love of his country. And he said, "I can tell you unequivocally, President Trump loves America." That came from an independent source. That did not come from somebody.
There was a lot of Indian people of Indian descent at that
in
rally
Houston,
too.
yes.
At
They have a
Houston.
large population there. And then later, Netanyahu Benjamin Netanyahu, he got on TV when he was talking about that
Another
Israel.
very genuine world leader that I've always admired.
Well, he was talking about that new Israel deal that between Israel and the Palestinians, and he was talking about that, and he was saying, I am just every day humbled and amazed at President Trump's ability to get stuff done. And he said, this is for the first time our region, a world leader has been able to bring some sort of peace, comfort, and negotiation to our region. And I thought, these are two independent people that are having these conversations. So all those folks out there who think that the rest of the world sees America as an embarrassment because of our president, I'm just not seeing it. I mean,
Well, no,
I don't see that happening.
That whole thing, if you're paying attention, would be blown out of the water just by his negotiation with NATO.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So he goes in because he's a negotiator. So he goes in. So I don't think we really necessarily need NATO anymore, which scared the heck out of all the.
It
the
forces
bean
everybody to the
it's like,
table.
Wait a
Yeah.
second. Wait a
That's
second.
his
What do you mean?
style. That's
Yeah.
exactly. He did exactly what he intended to do
Yeah.
with that. Is to get everybody to heighten their senses about, okay, I got to talk to this guy or else I'm going to lose something.
Right.
Right. Yep.
Which forced them to the table, and I think yes, there are elitist globalist leaders that think he's a bull in a china shop, but we really need a bull in the china shop.
Sometimes you do, I mean, I've had all kinds of leaders in the military, having served 36 years. And like I said, our leaders change every 2 years. You filter through a lot of leaders. And I've seen people with every kind of leadership style imaginable. I've seen people that are rough around the edges, maybe not the best of communicators when it comes to how they get their message out. But I will tell you, I have always looked at my leadership on mission accomplishment. Can they accomplish the mission, and can they get buy-in of the people? You got to think about what we do in the military. We send young men and women into battle. I mean, that's a pretty rough thing to do. We ask you to leave your families and whatever. And can they get everybody putting their oars in the water and rowing in the same direction? And can they do that in a way that accomplishes the mission? That's President Trump.
Well, the other thing too is not just accomplishing a mission; it's knowing the value of human life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll give you an example. You go back to World War One, right?
Mm-hmm.
In World War One, there was, I forget which battle it was. It doesn't really matter. They were a lot of them were very similar. They bombed the Germans for days, assuming that they had weakened them. They sent a wave of English soldiers across no man's land. They got wiped out. Says, wow, that didn't work. Let's do it again. And they sent another wave, and they got wiped out. 20-something thousand kids, because they're kids, and it seems like Trump really gets it and really doesn't want to have a mission unless it's necessary for the security of the United States of America, where somebody's child is going to be taken out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first started campaigning in October, that was right when that little skirmish was going on with Syria and the Kurds and Turkey, and there was this, and people were saying to me, Lynn, how can you live with yourself? You're supporting the president, and he's got Kurdish blood on his hands. And I kept saying, our president knows more than what we know right now. And I have full faith and confidence that our president has aligned himself with leaders that are giving him good intelligence, and there's something more to this story that we don't know about. And what happened 2 weeks later? He had to get in there to get to Baghdadi. If we had been in a conflict with Turkey, we never would have gotten in that airspace to go take out Baghdadi. He knew he was going to be there, and he knew and he got there, and it was so precise, and it was so perfectly executed, and he got out, and there weren't any civilian lives lost, except for what Baghdadi took with him, and and American lives were spared. And that, to me, is, we didn't have a repeat of Benghazi.
Well, the other
We didn't have another failed mission.
The other thing, when we took out Soleimani, right? I learned this. I don't have secret information, but when he took out Soleimani, it was timed so perfectly that there was, I assume it's CIA or Special Forces, were on that scene within a few minutes and grabbed all the cell phones and everything else and took off.
Took off with the intel. Yeah. Yeah.
That is amazing.
That was one of those things. It's like you said. What's going on in his daily intelligence briefings is not something that the mainstream media has access to.
Nor should they.
But
Right.
they criticize him for moves that he makes, not understanding that he's made decisions, or decisions have been made months in advance, right? The Baghdadi thing was planned for months, right? And that whole troop withdrawal was part of the process of drawing him out. The same thing with Soleimani. The media saw it as, oh, this is a retaliation for something that happened last Friday, right? But Soleimani and that process was put in place months before that as well. That entire intelligence operation, you don't get to know exactly where somebody is going to be at the exact minute within several feet
right?
by just starting an intelligence campaign within 4 days.
Oh, no,
right?
no.
That's and so everybody sees it. Oh, this is a retaliation. This is World War III. So
not there yet,
yeah.
are we?
So, but it's all about. There are things going on in the intelligence community that's bubbling up to the president that the media doesn't know about, and all of that criticism is just not warranted.
Okay, wait. We're spending too much time on Trump.
Yeah, I know.
So, can you do me a solid when you get there? Make sure that bill for Second Amendment reciprocity.
Oh my gosh.
That's gotta come
Universal
back.
carry? Is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about, where you can be able to carry across state lines? Oh my gosh. Why are we still having this conversation?
I
It's
know.
in the Constitution. It says I can do it. Why I can still
I
get
know.
arrested in Massachusetts is beyond me.
People ask me all the time, what kind of new law are you going to pass? And I always say, I'm not passing a bunch of new laws. We got a bunch we got to get rid of first.
Yeah.
Right.
But that is one that I would like to see. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see term limits. I think it's time.
But
That's
the
what
term
we need.
limits
We need
have to be a
somebody in
constitutional
Congress
amendment.
to present the term limit bill.
Well, there's a
right?
lot of
But
us
then
that are
all
signing
the
the
folks
term
that are
limit
already
pledge.
there don't want that because they're already beyond their term, what would be their term
Well,
limit, and they'd have to leave.
And there are some tremendous Congress people, no doubt. I can name a large number of tremendous Congress people, and I would like to see that maybe those people transition to Senate, and then maybe after Senate something else. If they want to move within the system, because they are assets, and I think those that. But the other thing I'm going to worry about is campaign finance reform. This is ridiculous that people are spending. Bloomberg, billions of dollars. Now, I understand it's his money, and he can do whatever he wants with it. That's the beauty of being an American. But come on, buying yourself into an election, we really need to start looking at who can represent the people. And, our silver spoon trust fund babies that just carry on the legacy. The one thing our founding fathers wanted in this nation was not to have dynasties,
Right,
And
exactly.
yet
They didn't want a professional political class.
correct,
Which
correct.
is what we have now.
And we have that now. And so I think, especially since I'm in the throes of fundraising, I can tell you how hard this is. But, it's ridiculous. And when I think about the literally trillions and trillions of dollars that are spent every couple of years on campaigns, for what end? So
Never
that we
mind
can get the richest person
The federal
in?
government does also match a certain amount of presidential campaign funds for presidential candidates. That still takes place as well, right?
I am, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't follow. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't.
there's
It's hard enough to keep up with my own, making sure that I'm following the FEC in my own congressional campaign. I know that there are a lot of federal rules on how you can campaign, what you can raise, and where it can come from, and what you can spend it on. I do know that. But
So besides doing that one favor for me, because I'm your best friend, because for those people who don't know, a reciprocity means that if I'm like I was, remember Lee Quant? So I was going
that's a
out to
name I haven't heard in a while.
yeah. Oh, he's still a good friend. So I went out to visit Lee Quant on my motorcycle, right?
Okay.
And I was coming back, and I didn't want to just go down 101, because one thing is at in the evening the sun's right in your eyes the whole trip, and 101 is not that safe. So I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go back roads, and I tried to negotiate back roads. And so I got my helmet. I don't have a helmet on. I got my pistol in my pocket. I look up, and the sign said 495 next exit.
Ruh-roh.
which meant I was in
You
Massachusetts.
were in Massachusetts.
And you were breaking at least 2 laws.
At least 2, probably more. So I spun around and took off the other way until I was back in New Hampshire. But the premise is, if I go into Massachusetts, just because I cross that state line, in no way do I lose my freedom of speech. In no way do I lose my freedom of religion. The only thing I lose is my right to bear arms. And that's unconstitutional.
And barehead.
And barehead.
And barehead.
Well, that's different.
The helmet
That's-
law.
that- yeah, that's not.
Yeah, you don't have a constitutional
I don't.
right
I don't.
to-
Yeah, that's not a constitutional thing. That's a New
No,
Hampshire
you're
thing.
right. You're
But
right.
it has always bothered me because it's just not. It's not reasonable that I am not allowed to defend myself as soon as I cross the state line.
Right, and that was an example, and I've done it myself. Accidentally crossing over into Massachusetts from Seabrook, unintentionally, but I am automatically a criminal at that point. And the fact that it was completely unintentional, it was accident, and it can be corrected by turning around and going 100 yards that way, is not a defense.
Nope.
I'm still
No,
being
I
thrown
know,
in
I
jail
know.
for it if
And you still have a felony conviction, which means you can't.
And then now
Exactly.
you lose your arms for good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got one state dictating whether or not residents in another state can own firearms.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, you get one driver's license, you've proven your competency to be able to drive a car, right? You get one driver's license and nobody stops you at the border and says, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go get a Massachusetts driver's license to enter our state, and you're going to have to get a Connecticut driver's license. We don't do that, right? And, I would arguably, I mean, first of all, you're 2 law-abiding citizens, right? So what did you do? You instantly tried to fix the situation,
Right.
right? So all that does is keep honest people honest. It does not, if you are a criminal and you're running arms, you're going right over that border and you don't care. You got them hidden somewhere.
Well,
and
absolutely,
you're
yeah.
gonna, and so I think that it doesn't, I don't think it meets the intent of what it should be. And when you start getting beyond the intent of the law, you really start getting yourselves in trouble. And so, yeah.
So what now? You're traveling around the state, and you must be hearing other issues besides the Second Amendment. What are the big ones people are?
2 top issues, and they're neck and neck. Number 1 is corruption. They want a Congress that they can trust. And number 2, health care. That's what I'm hearing.
We
And
have
so-
a call coming in.
Uh-oh.
All right. Good evening. You're on Rock Paper Hand Grenades. How you doing? Who's this?
Doing really well. I just tuned in. I hear you having a discussion on firearms. I've got one that's even more preposterous for you. I was a volunteer teaching riflery at the Manchester Boys Club for like 10 years. It was like a hunter safety course, except we used air guns. We didn't use, real guns. And we wanted to espouse some inter-club activity and some competition, getting our kids ready to go to state national. And we were forbidden. We couldn't go to Massachusetts because we had air guns. I mean, how dumb does that get? Thank
Wow.
you. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Couldn't.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, that's pretty bad.
Now, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I used to take my 22 on the bus to go to school because I was in the rifle club.
Back
that
in the
was-
day.
Even I'm a little bit younger than you, but even I recall in high school, folks coming to school with a rifle slung on their back because we had a rifle range in the basement of the main building.
Yeah, a lot of kids at my school.
It was in Pittsfield, Maine.
Pittsfield, Maine.
Yeah, but getting back to the 2 issues.
Yeah,
let's
2
talk
issues.
about this. So corruption in our Congress. People were very upset about this impeachment charade that went on for so long. They're upset that we have a Congress that the president can't trust. Getting back to those missions, he couldn't have, even if he wanted to tell Congress, he couldn't because we have a Congress that leaks like a sieve, and so he couldn't trust them. And so people are talking about the corruption. And they're done with it. They just want a Congress that's going to go work for the people. And that's one thing where we talked about my skill sets and my experiences. After 34 years in the military, right? I have learned how to work with people regardless of the color of your skin, regardless if you're male or female. I don't even care what uniform you wear, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard. We all come together at the end of the day, and we do one thing, and that's support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the people that live in this country, because we all took an oath to do that. And if 1 million people in a uniform can do that, I certainly can join my brothers and sisters in arms who are starting to come and join, get into the Congress and work together, because for us, it's the same oath, just a different mission. And we're willing to go work for you guys. So that's number one, corruption. Number two, healthcare. And today, I don't know how you can send somebody to Congress without some sort of healthcare experience and expect them to work on healthcare reform. And I've been really blessed. I've had 34 years of healthcare delivery experience, healthcare law experience, healthcare legislation experience, healthcare policy development experience, healthcare, did I already say law?
Yeah.
I've done, my breadth and depth of healthcare experience is so expansive that I want to bring that to the Congress. I just met with Congressman Phil Rowe in the Doctors Caucus. He's from Tennessee, and they are so excited to have a nurse come in, because that caucus is only 13 people strong, and they're struggling so hard to bring healthcare reform to this nation.
You know what the most trusted profession in this country is?
Probably nursing.
Nurses.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can count on us, And I think that being able to add to that discussion so we can bring affordable, accessible, and quality health care to people, and that is not through Medicare for all. It doesn't work.
Can I be devil's advocate
Yes,
for a second?
be devil's advocate.
So I was not one of the ones who jumped on board to fight against Romney because of Romney Care.
Okay.
My rationale was that Romney Care was a Massachusetts healthcare system, right? And to me, I don't know why we don't use that model, not nationally, but statewide. So that, okay, let's say Massachusetts has components A, B, C, and D. And New Hampshire looks at that and says, that works pretty good. They're pretty efficient. But let's do A and B and C and see how that works. And a few years down the line, they say, well, we didn't add D, and that's why it's not functioning quite well right. Or Massachusetts looks and says, wow, we can get rid of D and save all the money in New Hampshire. So you have this competition of ideas going amongst the states, as opposed to a federal government getting involved and making it nationwide, which if it fails nationwide, everybody suffers.
Well, I'm all about the 10th Amendment, and I'm all about states having the rights to do what they want. And, we see that with education. I moved here in 1993 from California. I was, we moved in 93, but I was pregnant with my daughter when we started building our house. And I moved here to New Hampshire because New Hampshire fit our family. It fit our values, fit, low crime, good education, those sorts of things. So I'm all about states' rights, right? We chose New Hampshire out of all 50 states as the place to raise our child. But I have a real problem with the government running your health care. You wouldn't let the government get control of your car insurance. You wouldn't let the government tell you how to manage, okay, well, you don't get new tires this week because, your city you live in does better road maintenance or whatever, we need to be able to buy our insurance across state lines so that there is competition that
So
drives
you're not
the
in
cost.
favor of some sort of national health care?
I don't think the government should be in the business of running your health care. No.
Okay.
No, I think Medicare for all is terrible. I don't know why we would want it. For everybody, there's just so many layers of problems. And when you start getting into a bureaucracy where the government gets to say, okay, well, I'm sorry, you're 95 and you're not worth the femoral popliteal bypass surgery, so we're just going to amputate your foot.
Exactly what Bloomberg said yesterday. Did you hear Bloomberg's comments?
No.
No, his comment was, we need to get to a point where if you're 95 and you have prostate cancer, that we just say, no, go home. It's not curable, and
But that should be for
right.
an individual to
It's-
decide.
Well, exactly, but but he's advocating government-run health care, and he very specifically said that if you're over a certain age and you have terminal cancer, we're not going to treat you at all. Because it's not. But you take that socialized medicine, and of course, the elite class will get that service when they're older, but. They're talking about death panels, but that was almost an exact quote from from Bloomberg yesterday or the day
Yeah.
before, where he said that if you're 95 and you have cancer, then we're not going to treat you.
But I think that should be up to the individual. And if you want to spend
It
all
should,
your money
absolutely.
on Cadillac health insurance because that's important to you, you should be able to do that. And if you want to buy minimum essential coverage because that's important to you, and you want to spend the rest of your money going on vacation and live your life while you can, that is your decision to make. And so, any person can have different plans. It's up to you. Look at your cars, for example. Some of us buy different car insurance or different, even different vehicles, because that's where our value is. I personally, I have a 21-year-old car and I have a 12-year-old car, and I haven't carried comprehensive insurance on them in in years because my cars aren't worth it. And I buy liability insurance and I make sure that I take care of the people around me that it's going to impact, right? But if I total my car tomorrow, I'm getting
Which
nothing out
miles
of
you
it.
got on the one that's? What did you say? 21 year. Yeah.
108,000.
Really? You don't even drive it.
It's a
Gary-
convertible.
Mine's a
Gary's got
2000
you beat by a long
and
shot.
then my other one's got 189,000 on
No,
it.
you're not even close. No, my 2002 Tacoma's got 350,000 miles.
God bless you. I
Yeah.
might be
Well, I
getting
can't
one.
afford. I can't
Yeah.
afford a new one anyway.
But,
so.
I
Hey, Lynn.
mean-
Lynn, we're running out
Oh,
of time.
sorry.
I want to make sure you have time to tell people how they can get on board the Lynn train.
Oh, absolutely. So we have so
Do
much
you call it
exciting
the Lynn
stuff.
train or
No, we
the
call
Lynn?
it Team Lynn.
Team Lynn.
Team Lynn. And Team Lynn is in an exciting place right now. We are working really hard on fundraising. We can always use money. So if there's anybody out there that wants to write us a check, we'll take that. But we've got just so many volunteers, people excited to get moving on the campaign. We're at www.blankenbecker, that's BLANKENBEKER.com.
Just rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah. And and so we've got some tremendous endorsements coming out this week, but I can't spoiler alert them. So be looking,
Do
watch
you
our.
mind if you tell people who definitely is endorsing you?
Well, you are. Thank you
There you
very
go.
much, and I appreciate it. But we're gonna blast that with a big special endorsement, and thank you very much for that. But we have so many. We're gonna be sending out our endorsements coming out really soon. So follow us on Facebook. We're just at Lynn Blankenbecker for Congress. You can follow me on my private page at Lynn Ferrari Blankenbecker, or follow our website Blankenbecker.com, BLANKENBEKER.com.
Well, her name is also, if you looked at the rock, paper, hand grenade post, there's a link to her name's on there, so you can find her somehow. We can add your web page to our
Oh, please
Facebook
do.
thing
Thank
too.
you. I
We'll put a
appreciate
post
that.
up there and we'll add it
Yeah,
to the
Lynn, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks,
You're
Gary.
awesome.
Thank
It
you,
was
Josh.
pleasure serving with you in the legislature. You were always fun.
Aw, thanks. I
Um,
loved serving with you as well.
Josh.
I know, I'm a pain in the butt.
No,
You should run
no.
for office.
Probably
I
guys.
told you, I make trouble behind the scenes, not in the State House.
Hey, anyway, we'll see you next week. We got a couple local ladies coming on next week. We'll see you guys.